Hello everyone, today I'll be narrating 3 new creepyposts that I found off of the Let's Not Meet subreddit. Liking this video and subscribing to my channel helps me a lot. After you've heard these stories, let me know what you think of them in the comments below. But without further ado, let's dive straight into their experiences.
These are their stories.
This all happened last summer when me and my childhood best friend, we were both 15, decided to go camping for her birthday. We were originally supposed to be a 5 to 6 person group, but it ended up being just the 2 of us. So we met at her grandma's house, me with my scooter and her with her mom in a car, and headed to our camping site for the next 2 nights. The camping site was very deep in the woods beside a public trail, but there were still neighbors who had a lot right next to the one we were using. My friend's mother warned us to not go take a walk on the left side of the trail, which would lead us to the weird and possibly dangerous neighbors. We obviously listened since we didn't want any trouble at all. So after unpacking most of our stuff, her mother left, letting us alone in the middle of the woods with only a 50cc scooter to get out in case of emergency, which, don't get me wrong, is very useful but not very fast. So we started doing our thing, eating junk food, listening to music, catching up on both of our lives, since we haven't talked in a very long time. She moved away a few years prior to this, so we don't get the chance to talk to each other that much. The sun was slowly going down. It was getting darker and darker. We were talking and singing when we heard an ATV coming on the trail. It was coming from the left side. Me and my friend freaked out a little, so we basically just locked the door and ran to the back of the camper. The ATV stopped on our camping site. We could hear 2 adult males talking to each other about whatever knows what. It took something like 5 minutes, but they finally left. At this point, we weren't that worried because we thought it was just some curious people who wanted to know if there was anyone in the camper, which had already been robbed in the past, so we just continued our stuff, listening to music and all. By this time, it was already dark outside and the moon wasn't out yet, leaving us with no other lights than our candle. There was no water and no electricity in the camper, which also meant we had to go outside to use the bathroom. Fortunately, it was a full moon night, so eventually the moon would come out and we will be able to see outside pretty well. So again we were talking, everything else was quiet, no music, no animal noises either, and then we heard an ATV coming our way once again, so we turned out all the candles and stopped talking, waiting in silence. We quickly sat on the ground of the camper to make sure no one could see us from outside because the curtains were still opened, and then we listened. The ATV stopped a little before coming up to our camping site and everything went silent. A couple minutes after that, we could hear footsteps all around the camper. Yes, it could have been an animal, but with the ATV sound and what happened after, we know it wasn't an animal. The steps eventually faded away. We then quietly moved to the back of the camper, closing every curtain, making sure the door was locked. We brought 2 knives with us. We eventually heard another noise. We immediately went silent and we hid the candlelight. We then heard the noise again. It was like someone was trying to open the camper door just by turning the handle. We then heard footsteps going all the way around the camper and we could hear the person testing every single window to see if any of them were opened. We were almost crying. After they tested all the windows, the steps faded away with maybe 1 hour of tranquility and silence, during which we were quite panicking. When we finally calmed down, we heard noises at the door once again, but this time, it sounded more like someone was trying to unlock the door with the lockpick. We could hear the lockpick inside of the mechanism, and then the person would try to turn the handle. After 5 minutes of trying, the person probably got mad and started turning the handle angrily and punching and kicking at the door. We were freaked out. I had my brand new iPhone in one hand, hesitating on calling the cops or no. No service was available at this location, but 911 can still work most of the time. The noise was still going on at the door and all around the camper. This lasted for at least 30 minutes. The person was trying every window and then at some point gave up once again. We then started to make up a plan. The noise at the door happened a couple more times. We acted as if we were more than 2 people in the camper, so we started acting like my friend's mother and sister were there, as if one of our guy friends was there, and we acted like the noise woke us up and we screamed at the people to go away and we got mad. Our plan worked, I guess, since we heard multiple people running away. The next morning, after making sure everything was okay, we got out of the camper and we saw that a bunch of the plants next to the camper had been stepped on. There were footsteps everywhere in the mud and everywhere around the camper. Since it was daytime and my friend's mother was supposed to come back to see us, to make sure we were okay, we decided to sit outside waiting for her. We were walking around waiting when a car slowed down in front of our campsite. It never stopped, but we saw the driver staring at us. Then maybe 10 minutes later it went by again and again and again, always giving us that menacing stare. When my friend's mother finally arrived, we asked her if anyone tried to prank us or make a joke, and she went on and asked every possible suspect, and no, it was not a prank. Everyone promised that if it was them, they would have told us, but it really wasn't them. We didn't sleep alone this time. We had someone else come sleep with us for the second night. I'm just glad they weren't able to open the door to the camper. So I'm 23 now, but when this happened, I was 17. In my last year of high school, I was the art girl. I was working on my portfolio so that I could apply to art school. I mainly did landscapes, but part of the requirement for our portfolios was life drawing. Obviously, my high school didn't have any life drawing classes, so my art teacher linked me up to a life drawing class at a local university, which is one of the top art institutions in the UK. So for my school, I had to get a half-hour bus to the center of the city, and then walk maybe 15 minutes up a long stretch through the student district. It was a 6-week course, and this happened the 5th week. The class was really interesting, and I learned a lot since this was my first time working with life models. I was pretty confident and not too worried about walking alone at night. The class finished at maybe 9 p.m. and it was pretty dark by the time I got out. So 4 weeks walking there and back, uneventful. 5th week walking there, totally fine. 5th week walking back to my bus stop, also totally fine. 5 minutes at the bus stop, it was very freaky. So the stop I had to wait at was outside the expensive private school in my city. There's a strip with about 4 bus stops and it's also pretty busy. So busy that people don't even see what's happening right in front of them. So I must have been one of the first people there, so I'm standing just outside the shelter because I'm smoking, and obviously I don't want to be a jerk and make other people breathe in my smoke. So there's only about a few minutes left till my bus and I'm minding my business when this guy comes and stands super close to me. Like, not as in infringing a bit of my personal space here close, like literally I can feel him standing against me. He must have been in his 40s and just had that general creepy vibe and looked really grubby. So obviously I'm a bit freaked out and sidestep away. So does he. I look at him and he has the creepiest smug grin. But at this point I'm like, okay, he's trying to freak me out and he knows I know. I step away again, like fairly far away this time. He follows me again and is literally standing with the front of his body dead up against the back of mine. Honestly, I do not know how nobody noticed this or called him out. We were outside the shelter and it was dark. People are on their phones or their own conversations. I guess it must have been just that. I literally just froze in the moment, even though there were people around who would have helped. I don't want to overreact, maybe it's just a misunderstanding. I don't want to seem rude. So anyway, it gets worse. After dodging this creep for a few more moments as time dragged in slow, finally this bus comes around the corner. I know if I get on this bus before this guy, he is going to sit next to me, which is what I want to avoid. So politely I gesture and say after you. He gives me that creepy look again and says no, you go first. I insist but he refuses again. There's a big queue now and I don't want to hold anyone up, so reluctantly I get on right before this guy. I get on the bus and do the only reasonable thing, which is to sit next to an old lady right at the front of this empty bus. The seats are only in pairs, so there's no way he could sit beside me now. Like I said, this bus is almost empty, so where does he sit? In the seat directly behind me. I'm just sitting trying to ignore him, which is pretty difficult to do when this guy keeps leaning forward and literally playing with my hair. I have really long hair and his hands are on it. I pulled out my phone and tried to text my mom, but the sending bar would just stick. It happened to literally every time I tried to message her. Obviously, I was scared to call her. I didn't want him hearing what I had to say. I messaged my friend and told her what was happening and that I thought that if I got off this bus, the guy would most definitely follow me. I still had a 10-minute walk home after I got off this bus up a long straight road, so my friend calls my mom and tells her what's happening. My mom then calls me and relays what my friend had told her. Now, I'd been on this bus for about 15 to 20 minutes and my stop was coming up in 5. It's not a big city. My area is suburban and I don't know everyone, but I think I recognize most. I'd never seen this guy before. He wasn't local to my area, so I reasoned he had definitely been on this bus longer than his stop. Anyway, my mom called. I just said to her, I will be getting off this bus in 5 to 10 minutes. You need to get to X Street now and meet me. As soon as I said that, the creep pushes the button for the next stop. Literally as soon as I say it. He stands up and makes sure to bang into my arm and drag his body hard across me as he walks past. Stares at me from the door and through the window as the bus drives away. I'm not 100% certain if he actually had bad intentions, or if he just got off on a 17-year-old girl who was on her own. The fact he pressed the button as soon as I confirmed someone was meeting me makes me think he did intend on following me. I didn't go to the final week of that class. This happened this past year, my senior year of undergrad. I attend a big university with 2 bus stops. The first one is for a smaller portion of the school, and the second one is the main one that people use, but they're pretty far apart. I got out of class and was next to the small bus stop around sunset. This guy, I'll call him Eric, comes up to me of all people in line and starts asking if this bus would take him to one of the student housing areas. It was kind of odd because it was partway into the year, but whatever, he seemed genuinely confused. I explained yes, this bus would take him there and his stop is the same one I get off of. He asked if he can wait in line with me and he was nice, so I said sure. We're talking and waiting for the bus and it doesn't come, so I decide to walk to the main stop and he follows. Again, at this point it's not creepy because it's just small talk. We walk to the other bus stop and we just jump on one over there. Eric sits next to me and is berating me with questions that I'm now answering very shortly. Then everything he says is flirty, like, yeah, come see my pool so we can tan, let's work out together and get sweaty in the sauna. All very weird and random, and I just don't say much because everyone on the bus can hear the conversation. He then asks for my number, which I lie about, but this guy says okay, let me call you. Obviously, I get a call and Eric's just confused and I just say oh my bad. I knew he would call it again, so I just gave the right number. Now I'm regretting telling him my stop, but I still get off with him. He's continuing the flirty comments, but the street I'm parked on is opposite of his route home. I say goodbye and wait till he's out of my sight and to get in my car and drive away. At this point it's late and he was gone, so I just went home and forgot about it. He texted me a couple times the next few weeks, all of which I ignored. Eventually he stopped and I forgot about the encounter. Fast forward a few months and I rarely use the bus anymore because I have a parking pass. One day after class I decide to go to the Vons right next to my original bus stop. I park in the farthest row because it's very busy and my car is in the middle of the row. I'm on a quick mission, so I'm rushing down the first aisle and some guy turns around to check me out, but I ignore it and keep going. I felt the guy's eyes on me still and thought, how do I know this dude? Then I get in line and there he is at the front of the line grinning at me. It's Eric from the bus and I'm like, screw this, so I switch lines. He checks out way before I do and leaves. I get my stuff and walk out to my car. I was parked just far enough that you couldn't see my car, just the direction it was in. As I get closer, there's Eric standing right in front of my car. This was disturbing because he wasn't waiting at the door of the store or in the middle of the lot. Nope, right at my car. He positions himself in between me and my car and he's grinning and he says, I know you. I played dumb saying sorry, you must have me confused. He says, no, you're from school. I say no, that's not me, I don't go to that school. He believes me and starts aggressively asking me out. I say no thank you, I have a boyfriend. He says, okay, so you can't have friends? And I look at him and say sarcastically, do you really want to just be friends? He just grins at me and replies no. He then says, don't worry, when you're single I will find you. The way he said it was very unnatural and creepy. He finally gets out of my way and lets me into my car. He watches me leave the parking lot and I drove to my brother's house just because of how unsettling that encounter was. On one occasion, I came from a group project and had to take the bus. It was crowded when I got on, so I sat in the first seat I saw. I can hear the conversation behind me and instantly recognize Eric's voice. The girl he was talking to seemed to be really into the conversation surprisingly. But now here I was on a bus to a school that I told this creep I didn't go to. I tried to get off quickly, but somehow Eric and the girl got off before me. I'm relieved and try to keep a distance. I don't see them anymore and turn a corner and there he is again waiting for me. He doesn't move though, he just grins at me and says, hi, are you going that way or this way by now? He used my real name and the fake one I used when I played dumb at Vons. I just walk away and call my friends to meet on campus. The shelter in place was issued the next week and I moved home. Luckily I never have to see Eric again. Alright, so that's it. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Let me know what you thought of these stories in the comments below. But as always,
have a nice day.